All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This presentation is going to be over Timbuktu, Mali, and about its ties to Islam and the spread of Islam throughout the ancient world, and the modern world to some extent as well, and about the connection between Islamic scholarship and Timbuktu and how the city became a seat of that scholarship. I'm going to open with a couple of images for y'all. So this quote, I think, is one of my favorite parts of this. It covers everything that I'm going to talk about. So the quote reads, "Salt comes from the north, gold from the south, and silver from the country of white men. But the word of God and the treasures of wisdom are only to be found in Timbuktu." So that talks a bit about the attitude of people that are citizens of Timbuktu, and it speaks a bit about their culture. Yes?
Why is it spelled two different ways? Like, is that a cultural thing, or is that just...
So this is the French spelling here. Because of French colonization in the early 19th century, they had their own way of spelling Timbuktu, but the correct spelling is the one at the very top.
Okay.
And I think this really captures the attitude of like I said, the citizens of Timbuktu towards their libraries there and towards their culture of scholarship. And the next image I have. So this is a partially destroyed manuscript. You can see this gentleman's holding it there. It kind of looks like it's been burned or torn a little bit around the edges, but not completely destroyed. There's some of it that's obviously been preserved. And what you're seeing there, that is the work of people that have put their lives on the line to preserve these manuscripts. And a little bit into the geography. These are the objectives of our presentation. We'll identify the connection between Timbuktu and the spread of Islam. We're going to recognize the intellectual contributions of Timbuktu's Islamic scholars. We'll gain a working understanding of the geography of Timbuktu and how that played into the spread of Islam and it becoming a center of scholarship. And we'll understand present-day challenges for preserving Timbuktu's as a World Heritage Site. So a bit about the geography. So Timbuktu is located in Mali. I really like this map because it shows you a few different things that are really important to the story of Timbuktu. Timbuktu is right here on the map. It's on the edge of the Sahara Desert and the African savannas. So not quite desert, but right before that grassland breaks into desert is where Timbuktu is. Kind of made it a bit of an oasis. You can see it's right here on the Niger River as well, so they have a water source. This map is really cool because it shows trade routes, and it also shows one of my important people that I'll be talking about, his route to Mecca. What you're seeing here is there's a lot of gold in this area of Africa, and that's the little boxes there are the gold. And then the little pickaxes up here, that represents salt deposits. And salt was an enormous part of the trade in Timbuktu. People would come through the desert to get salt because salt was very valuable at this time. So the salt trade helped to spur Timbuktu's economy. That was kind of the primary resource that really got them kicked off economically. And then, of course, the black lines are trade routes where people would come all the way from Cairo, Morocco. It looks like a little bit from the Mediterranean, but mostly it was people that were crossing the desert. Here we also have a picture of Mansa Musa's route to Mecca. Mansa Musa was the ruler of the Mali Empire around 1324. We will get to him a little bit more later, but this is where, when he was making his pilgrimage to Mecca, he passed through Timbuktu. Okay. So Timbuktu's trade, economy, and all this activity that was coming to the city really made it attractive to people who were passing through. People like Mansa Musa would pass through on their pilgrimage to Mecca. They would also pass through specifically to trade. It started to be a rumor throughout the world, particularly in Europe, that it was almost like a African El Dorado. There was immense gold in Timbuktu and the promise of wealth for those that went there. So people were really attracted to this. And as people would pass through Timbuktu, it attracted scholars, and it attracted people who were on their religious pilgrimage to Mecca, particularly wealthier people, but also people that were just into academics and writing down things and things like that. In 1324, we talked a bit about Mansa Musa, but this is when he passed through Timbuktu and the effect of that. When he passed through Timbuktu, he was wanting to get Islam established as the religion in his empire, so he was passing out legal texts, various educational materials to the public to make Islam secure in his empire. And he was kind of thought to be the person who got the ball rolling as far as the tradition of scholarship in Timbuktu is concerned. So he was kind of the founder in that sense. A little bit, about a century later, Mansa Musa loses his power in Timbuktu, and Timbuktu is conquered by Askia Muhammad, who was the ruler of the Songhai Empire. Askia Muhammad, this is an artist's rendition of what Askia Muhammad might have looked like. I know artist renditions are not entirely accurate, but this is what we think. You notice in the picture, you can kind of see those buildings in the background, and you can also see the tree and then various citizens there as well. It brings home the point that this was a really busy city, a really bustling economy, and people wanted to be there. There was a lot going on in Timbuktu. And so, like Mansa Musa, Askia Muhammad passed out educational materials, legal text, religious text, stuff to educate the public and get people excited about education, about scholarship, and along with that, excited about Islam. And he's been kind of revered as this art scholar, this father of academia in Timbuktu. And then, unfortunately, Askia Muhammad's reign was brought to the end about a century or so later. His family was in different factions and against each other, and so there was a Moroccan invasion and subsequent military victory. The city was conquered again. And then, after the Moroccans conquered it, there was French colonization at the end of the 19th century. So the French took over. And there's that spelling of Timbuktu because of the French colonization. Libraries and mosques. So we've talked about Timbuktu is sort of this city of scholarship and where people go to learn stuff. Think of it kind of like a university town. Kind of like Commerce is a university town. People come here specifically for academic purposes. It was very much like that. But there's a connection between Islam and academia. There were 3 major mosques in Timbuktu that are still present today. I gotta make sure I pronounce this correctly. Jinga Rabor, and Sankor, and Sidi Yahya are the 3 major mosques that are still in Timbuktu. And in these mosques were libraries that had thousands and thousands of manuscripts. People oftentimes deposited their private collections in these libraries. And there was almost like this democratic attitude. Some of the librarians, if people came from another country and said, hey, I want this specific book, they'd be like, oh yeah, let me get you that book. I want you to learn all about this and let them take it home with them. And it was a shared community built around learning and gaining knowledge. We're talking everything from science, medical, math, history, again, Islamic texts, things of that nature. And these were hubs of scholarship. This is where people went to exchange ideas. People went here to worship, and people went here to socialize. It was a community hub. And I have a couple of pictures here. This is the Jinga Raber Mosque. You can see it. It's an urban mosque, and they've got like these wood posts that are holding it up. And this is the original architecture that they had at that time. I thought that was a really cool picture because it shows the moon in the you can kind of almost feel how dry and arid it is there. These are people inside Jinga Raber Mosque, and they're praying. They're on their prayer rugs and kind of in like a secluded area, practicing their altar worship. So present day challenges. In March 2012, an armed rebellion took place in Timbuktu. It was this rebel faction that took over the government and overthrew the government, and then afterwards, an Al Qaeda linked faction took over their established government, and there's still current Al Qaeda linked extremist activity in Timbuktu, and that's part of the challenge today with preserving the manuscripts and preserving the buildings in Timbuktu. Is these guys are extremists, and a lot of those texts were moderate works, things that would even talk about sexuality and Islam. And so obviously extremists don't want this text getting around. They don't want people having access to that, so they attempted to burn a lot of it. And that's it. I mean, it's hard to preserve private libraries when people are trying to burn it. And some of it has fallen into the hands of the black market. People have stolen the books, so a lot of it's scattered, unfortunately. This gentleman is Abdel Kader Hadaira. You can see him. This is him in his home with some of those manuscripts. And when Al Qaeda took over the city, he took it upon himself to run an operation to preserve those manuscripts. And he was smuggling them out of the city while they were in the city, doing terrible things to people. And he got those to Bamako to keep them safe. They're still there currently. Before he took it upon himself to do this, he had been asked to take on a mission to retrieve some of the lost manuscripts, and he'd been going places and talking to people and trying to get those back to Timbuktu. He had already brought back 377,000 manuscripts to Timbuktu before he took out this really gutsy operation. He risked his life to preserve these works of people from the past and their intellectual endeavors. And that's all I've got as far as presentation is concerned. So the point of this is Timbuktu it carries the legacy of scholarship. People went there to exchange ideas. They went there to practice their religion. And it's difficult to preserve that now because of the terrorist activity. Also, the desert sands are constantly blowing against those buildings, so it's really hard to keep them maintained. So those are some of the challenges to preserving the legacy left behind.
All right.